Hey, Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Harsh to win, see you. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
Hello, Patriots. Good evening. Chaos out here in the world today. Welcome to the show. We got some interesting things that we are going to talk about today. I got my new hat here, and it doesn't shine like I thought it would shine, but that's okay. So I'm Ryan Samuels, your host tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about some new evidence that came up. We're going to kind of do... we're going to talk about two subjects, but they're kind of related, but they're also kind of not, if that makes sense. So it has come out that, in fact, for January 6th, on January 4th, Donald Trump had requested about, 10,000 National Guard troops. Something happened along the lines, and they never came. Interesting. Very interesting. Let's listen to this.
I think we were going to start with President Trump. Are they ready to call their first witness?
Yes, we would call Kashif Patel. To your knowledge, did any senior DOJ leader ever state in words or substance that they felt they needed more or different authorization from President Trump before they could deploy National Guard troops to keep the peace on January 6th?
No.
So why didn't we have 10,000 National Guard troops suited up and armed guarding the Capitol in the morning of January 6th?
There's a multitude of reasons, but namely, step one was a commander-in-chief's authorization, which we had. Step two was a request by the governing body, the local governing body. It's the mayor, since it's Washington, D.C., and or the heads of the Capitol Police Bureau.
And Mr. Patel, I would ask you if you recognize this letter.
I do. It's the letter I referenced from Mayor Bowser, I believe on January 5th, to the Department of Defense, where she specifically stated we would not be requesting any additional National Guards men and women. And that was her letter to us. That was the declination of a request. And so we were on standby.
Did you testify before the January 6th Select Committee?
I did.
Were you questioned in a public hearing?
No, they declined my request for a public hearing.
Was your testimony public when given?
No.
Did you tell them what you've told us today about the president and the deployment of National Guard troops?
I believe so.
Did the committee ever call you to testify about those issues in public session?
No.
Some of the senior officials, people like Kash Patel, apparently not available.
Interesting.
We felt it appropriate that the transcript should be made public at some point, and after months-long negotiations, they refused to do so and publish their final report. And to my memory, it had been excluded. I think on the eve of the dissolution of the committee, my transcript was the last one released.
I have no further questions, sir. Please, sir. Thank you very much.
You called their bluff. And what's shocking to me, because I didn't even really understand this, is that you gave this testimony. Liz Cheney and Kinzinger and you guys, he gave this testimony essentially to J6 and they buried it.
Some of the senior officials, people like Kash Patel, apparently not available.
Point blank. Is your testimony basically one of the key reasons that Jack Smith can't and won't indict President Trump for insurrection?
I believe so. It's the truth. If anyone could have charged President Trump with insurrection, this special counsel, Jack Smith, would have done it.
100%. So Kash Patel goes before the January 6th committee, and he says, hey, Donald Trump requested this. Now, keep in mind, the significance of that. Donald Trump at the time is the president of the United States. He's the president of the United States. His own party is going there to protest the election. He requests the National Guard because he understands how ticked off everybody is. And he says, listen, you guys might want to get some National Guard out here because this may get a little out of hand. These guys are pretty ticked off. No, thank you. We don't need it. That's fine. And then they turn around and they accuse him of inciting an insurrection. I mean, I'm just stating, the news that's out there. You guys have got to come to your own conclusion on this. But why wouldn't you have the National Guard if you know that, thousands and thousands of people are coming to protest the vote? It doesn't make any sense, especially when the president says, hey, I think this might get out of hand, or, hey, we probably should have some National Guard there. And they turn it down. They don't ask for it. But then, that wouldn't be a problem if they didn't turn around and then say, hey, you're an insurrectionist. You incited this. And he turns around and says, well, no, I specifically requested the National Guard. And your people said, no. Here is Kash Patel on Hannity.
You heard Donald Trump authorize up to 20,000 troops, Kash Patel, 2 days before January 6th even happened. Tell us about that meeting.
Mr. Trump unequivocally authorized up to 20,000 National Guardsmen and women for us to utilize should the second part of the law, the requests, come in. But those requests never did, as you highlighted.
Let me be very clear. Both of you said this under oath, under the threat of a penalty of perjury to the committee?
Oh, absolutely, Sean.
I just want to be clear here that since then, in February of 2021, Mark Meadows said on Fox News that, quote, even in January, that was a given. As many as 10,000 National Guard troops were told to be on the ready by the Secretary of Defense. Is there any accuracy to that statement?
I'm not from my perspective. I was never given any direction or order or knew of any plans of that nature. So I was surprised by seeing that publicly, but I don't know the context or even where it was. So, no, there was no. We obviously had plans for activating more folks, but that was not anything more than contingency planning. There was no official message traffic or anything of that nature. Regarding.
So just so we're clear, you did not have 10,000 troops, quote, to be on the ready for January 6th, prior to January 6th.
A non-military person probably could have some sort of weird interpretation, but no, to answer your question, no, that was not part of my plan or the Department of Defense's plan.
And just that the rest of his statement was, quote, that was a direct order from President Trump, and yet here is what we see, all kinds of blame going around, but not a whole lot of accountability. And to be crystal clear, there was no direct order from President Trump to put 10,000 troops to be on the ready for January 6th, correct?
No. That's correct. There was no order from the president.
So that's Chris Miller, and they're doing his January 6th interview. It's interesting because Kash Patel is not saying that the President Trump ordered 10,000 troops. He approved up to it so that he wouldn't have to approve it if they needed it. He would just say, go ahead. He's going to say, okay, so if it gets out of hand, you guys should probably have these, but I'm going to pre-approve it for you so that when you need it, you just have it. And you don't have to get in touch with me, so I have to sign all this paperwork. It's done. You just activate them when all you have to do. So they were already approved by the president. Now, Kash Patel did go before the January 6th committee. And what he is saying is that he testified to that. And Liz Cheney is saying that he did not.
Witnesses who say they met with President Trump on January 4th, and he offered some 20,000 National Guardsmen to protect the Capitol building on January 6th, but the offer was rejected. Is that true? Do you know that to be true?
Well, his own acting Secretary of Defense says that's not true. Chris Miller has testified publicly that Donald Trump never issued any order to deploy the Guard to protect the Capitol.
Now, remember the context here, right? We heard Chris Miller. And the he's saying that no, there was never a direct order from the president to get the troops on the ground to the Capitol. Now, that's not what Kash Patel is saying. That's not what Donald Trump is saying. He's saying, I gave you this to use. You elected not to use it. You rejected it and said, we don't need it. We don't want it. But see how they twist and they turn that into, oh, that's a lie. He never ordered this, and that's not what they're saying. And Democrats are very good at that.
And so I would point people to his own Secretary of Defense's public testimony.
A few moments later.
So the four of you that I've had an opportunity to interview now confirm that on January 4th in the Oval Office that you heard Donald Trump authorize up to 20,000 troops, Kash Patel, 2 days before January 6th even happened. Tell us about that meeting.
Yeah, it's not one of those. Thanks again, Sean, like Chris said, for having us, especially on D-Day, to talk about this serious matter. It's not one of those meetings you forget. The Secretary of Defense, Chris Miller, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, the Chief of Staff to the President of the United States of America, Mark Meadows, and the President of the United States himself in the Oval Office talking about some of the most serious national security threats we were facing. And then we pivoted to setting up for January 6th, and Mr. Trump unequivocally authorized up to 20,000 National Guardsmen and women for us to utilize should the second part of the law, the requests, come in. But those requests never did, as you highlighted.
Let me be very clear. Both of you said this under oath, under the threat of a penalty of perjury to the committee?
Oh, absolutely, Sean. And to be clear, Kash brought it up best. The meeting was one of the serious kind of heavy meetings I've been in, and it was about a foreign threat that was directed towards the United States, which obviously we can't talk to for fear of ended up in jail. And so I kind of want to be clear. The president, as we're leaving, it says, hey, one more thing, and we all sat back down and we discussed what was going on January 6th. I don't want to, because I think that's important to bring up so that the opposition doesn't get this idea that this was the purpose of the meeting. The president was doing exactly what I expect the commander-in-chief to do, any commander-in-chief to do. He was looking at the broad threats against the United States, and he brought this up as on his own. We did not bring it up.
Very interesting. So that's Chris Miller, the recording that you heard earlier, but now you're hearing it from him with the appropriate context. That no, the president did not order the troops we need to get 20,000 National Guard troops there today. And then everybody said no. No, he said, this is available to you. You should probably do it. As the Secretary of Defense said, Chris Miller, that the president brought this up because Donald Trump was concerned it would get out of hand. That's literally what the Secretary of Defense said, that nobody brought it up to the president. The president brought it up and said, listen, we should probably have this ready to go because these people are really pissed off and I don't want this to get out of hand. But, the left is just going to twist that into whatever the heck they want to twist it into. And it's absolutely just outrageous.
When the Democratic-led committee is alleged to have deleted the more than 100 files. The House Administration Committee's Oversight Subcommittee that is chaired by Georgia Congressman Barry Loudermilk is now opening an investigation to get those answered. Georgia Congressman and Chair of the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, Barry Loudermilk, joins me. Good evening, sir. And of course, sadness particularly to your state of Georgia with the three who were reported. They are from your state. And of course, all of America, feels terrible about those soldiers. But turning now to this issue, tell me, did Chairman Thompson admit to you that 100 files have been deleted? Is there any question files have been deleted?
No, he did not. In fact, in his response to me, when I was just simply asking for the passwords for the files that we recovered from the hard drives, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. He did, in a previous letter, though, admit to not keeping certain documents, such as the videotapes of all the depositions and transcribed interviews they did. They videotaped every one of them, though those, according to House rules, should have been archived. And he admitted that they chose just not to keep those, as well as a suite of documents that were sent to the White House and to the Department of Homeland Security for them to archive, but these are House documents. And so our job, the American people deserve to know the truth of what happened on January 6th and what this select committee did, and we're going to keep looking till we get these documents and know the truth.
Are there two issues here? One is if they were sent to the archives or sent to the White House, there might be duplicate copies someplace, which makes it a harder task necessarily for you to find them. But do you have any reason to believe that there were some that were deleted deliberately that can't be recovered from someplace else and might contain some very valuable information?
Well, I can tell you that one of the documents that we recovered that was deleted on January the 1st, which was just 3 days or 2 days before the Republicans took control of the House, was a document related to the documents that were sent to the White House. The other documents of the 117 are password encrypted, and we're not able to get into them to see what they are, but they are unique.
Have you asked for that?
So this is what this is, right? After the Republicans took control of the House, and, Nancy Pelosi got the boot as the speaker, and then it was Kevin McCarthy. All of these files, these January 6 files, videos, evidence, all of this stuff was deleted and hidden and encrypted in passwords, and the new Republicans can't get access to it. Apparently, allegedly, that's what's going on, is what they're saying, so that we all understand it. We're on the same page.
The
and
password.
It appears.
Have you asked for those passwords?
I did. I asked Benny Thompson for the passwords, for someone to provide the passwords, and his response, he wrote a letter to me accusing me of all kind of crazy things, but then he just said, I don't know what you're talking about. Somebody knows the passwords to these documents, and we're going to keep looking till we can get them.
Why were any documents sent to the White House at all?
Well, according to Benny Thompson, these were interviews of White House employees that were with President Trump on January 6th or close to President Trump, and that they needed to hold on to him for national security reasons. The ones that were sent to the Department of Homeland Security, those were the Secret Service agents who were with President Trump. The uniqueness of these is these are the people who could testify specifically, not hearsay, but they were with President Trump as to his actions, versus Cassidy Hutchinson, who her testimonies of what Trump did or didn't do was mostly that she heard this or she overheard somebody talking about it. And so my personal opinion is they were sent to keep us from seeing those, but we are going to get access to at least the White House documents to look at them, and we'll have more questions as soon as the White House has offered us to come and look at them. But these are House documents, and it is important that we get those returned to the Houses.
You should be able to see everything, and nothing should be hidden from the investigative committee people. So here is Kash Patel one more time. This is him on Kash's Corner talking about the incident again, so we could understand it very clearly.
Why on January 6th, when it has now publicly been admitted by the FBI that they had information that there could possibly be a situation like that at the United States Capitol, why weren't the cabinet secretaries under President Trump briefed? Why didn't the FBI put 1,000 uniformed agents around the U.S. Capitol? Where was the fence? Right? These are the lackings that led to January 6th. These are the mistakes, intentional or otherwise, that led to January 6th. And if you look at the video from January 6th, and they still won't release all of it, an entire side of the Capitol, I believe it's the south side, was totally unmanned. No police officers whatsoever. And that's where the crowd first came in through. And you have to ask yourself, what happened on January 6th? Now, look, I was chief of staff at the Department of Defense on the 6th. We had offered the Capitol Police and Mayor Bowser of Washington, D.C., thousands of National Guardsmen and women 2 days before January 6th, and they turned us down. So it could have been prevented.
So could it have been just not a lot of information sharing happening?
I think it was not enough information sharing happening, and I think what people now are starting to realize is that the protecting of the U.S. Capitol on a day like January 6th is a law enforcement function. You cannot have the United States military descend and occupy the area around the United States Capitol. It's literally illegal. But they can assist their law enforcement partners through a request from the mayor or the governor or the Capitol Police. And that's what should have happened. And that's what we told them they might want to consider, but they flat out rejected it for political reasons, I believe.
So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think that that's part of a setup or part of a, whatever to get, to set up this big scam. I've worked for the government for many years. I was involved with the government, and I will tell you, they are literally not competent enough to pull off a scandal that large. So we all watched the State of the Union. We all heard me go over the State of the Union, with just Joe Biden as an absolute train wreck. One of the things he said is that crime is down. Crime is lower than it's ever been. Crime is this, crime is that. Well, it turns out that we didn't need National Guardsmen for January 6th, but we need them for the subways of New York City. Now, when I was a young guy in the early 2000s, I was going to John Jay College of Criminal Justice in Manhattan over by Columbus Circle. And I used to take the train in, and I used to take the subway. And this was post 9/11. So, there was National Guardsmen in the subway. That was to prevent terror attacks. But now the policies of the city of New York, like Alvin Bragg, and releasing serious criminals onto the streets, defunding the police, criticizing police, arresting police, having a mass exodus of police officers. Now, people are retiring early. They're up and quitting. They're moving out of New York. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster that you release all these criminals on the street. You minimize how many police officers there are. You push them all out of a job, whether you arrest them or you force them to retire, or they're just sick and tired of being treated like garbage, so they just leave. Then you have to deploy the National Guard to the subway. Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. We're a sanctuary city where we take millions of migrants in and then have to, unvetted, roam in the streets of New York, which skyrockets crime even further. So now we have the military in the subways of New York. That's how bad it is. And Joe Biden wants to say, oh, wait, no, crime is as low as it's ever been. Shut up.
From subway slashings to beatdowns on the platform, or hey, people getting pushed right onto the subway tracks, there's been a surge in violent crime on the transit system in the Big Apple. So New York's governor said she had to do something about it, now adding the National Guard and the state police. Take a look here. We want to show you what people are going to see on their morning and evening commutes in New York City. You're going to see the National Guard here, standing here, along with state police and more law enforcement. 750 National Guardsmen and 250 New York State troopers are being deployed into the subway system. That's in addition to the 1,000 NYPD officers that were added into the transit system in February. Along with the extra manpower, NYPD officers will also conduct random bag checks, we're told. From subway slashings to beatdowns.
Does that sound like crime is lower to anybody? Does that sound like crime is down? When you have to deploy the military to the subways? Because there's mass stabbings and people being shoved out onto the rails and robbed and raped and murdered and killed. And the problem's so bad you have to call the troops in? Literally? Typically the National Guard is for September 11th. Get the National Guard out there. Or, hurricane, tidal wave hit Manhattan. Get the National Guard out there. Not that crime is so bad that the police cannot handle it. That's absolutely mind-blowing. This is what it looks like in New York. You got the National Guardsmen just sitting around, guarantee zero ammo in that rifle. They're just there for show. And then people are having their bags searched. Just going to work. You have to have your bags searched, go through metal detectors just to get on a train. This is what a Democrat society looks like. But you're not allowed to own guns in New York City to defend yourself. You're not allowed to walk around with a gun to defend yourself in New York City. But the military can. This is what it looks like. State trooper. Backpacks containers are subject to inspection prior to entering the mass transit system. Individuals may refuse to permit inspection and elect not to enter the system. So you can say no, but you can't go to work. Think about the time it takes to get through all of this crap. I mean, if your commute is 30 minutes to work, you now have to leave like an hour and a half beforehand. So let's hear what CNN had to say about the National Guard troops. This should be good in the subways.
Joining us now. Okay, so the National Guard shows up. Highly unusual situation in the New York subway. What can they do? Are they there as a presence, or can they actually do some effective law enforcement if they're called?
Well, they're there as a visible deterrent. Here are government people in army uniforms with, machine guns.
Not one of them has a machine gun. They have AR-15s or M4s. I mean, it's no machine guns. There's no 240 Golf or a squad automatic weapon. There's no 50 cal. There's no machine gun. There's a rifle.
But that's about all they can do. They'll do the bag checks. Now, why are the bag checks useful? They may come up with a gun in a bag, a knife in a bag for someone who wasn't expecting to get caught in a bag check.
Oh my God. Somebody in the United States of America has a knife in their bag.
But most of the crooks I know don't carry their gun or their knife in their bag. So that'll be useful. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to be able to chase criminals. They're not going to be making arrests. If somebody runs up to them and said, I just got robbed and he went that way, they're probably not going to chase him, because if they catch him, they don't know what to do. And they don't really know the system. So a lot of this is the scarecrow effect, but it might make some people feel better and make some people feel apprehensive seeing soldiers in the subway.
Right, you seeing these sort of, like the army has come in with their guns and you're wondering what the heck is going on.
It's like one of those movies.
Yeah, exactly. Like what happened for this to occur, if you haven't been keeping up with all that's been going on. I'm curious what the NYPD thinks of the National Guard coming in, because as you say, if they cannot do any effective law enforcement, they are just a deterrent, then the people that they will have to call is the NYPD, correct?
Right. So there
was NYPD stations like in the subway system. Like there's cops everywhere. At least there was when I was there. The only reason, we just had September 11th. That's why the National Guard troops were in the subway, but they didn't even they have empty magazines in their rifles back then. So I'm sure it is now, considering that, the NYPD, you have to have like a 9-pound trigger because they don't want you to shoot it ever. It's true. Look it up, by the way.
There's perception and there's reality. But perception is reality if you're a subway rider. Right. If you don't feel safe, you're not safe.
Oh my God. Nobody gives a shit about how you feel. Can't listen to that crap anymore. I can't do it. And now this cancer is spreading. Now, since Kathy Hochul said, oh, we're going to put National Guard in the subway. Now Chicago wants to do it.
National Guard troops patrolling the CTA. It's an idea being floated after New York's governor deployed troops this week to New York City's subway system.
Tonight, the president of the CTA Workers Union tells CBS 2 the union supports a similar move here.
Yes, we do need something like that, because riders and especially the workers, they need to feel safe if they're performing a job.
Feel safe.
The police got that.
Not be safe. Notice that. It's never be safe. It's feel safe. My feelings matter.
Their hands tied with everything that's going on in the city. So any assistance is more than welcome.
On Wednesday, the governor of New York announced plans to deploy 750 National Guard troops to the New York City subway to help police beef up security. The move follows a rise in violent crimes on the subway system there. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was asked earlier this week if the National Guard might be a solution for crime on the CTA. Johnson says it's not his decision.
So we will see what Chicago does. But I do not think that having activated troops in our subway system to assist in civilian policing is freedom. And they call the right totalitarians. I mean, that's a totalitarian move. Like, oh, crime's out of control. These people are out of control. Get the National Guard out there. I want troops in the subways to search people's personal property without warrant, without cause, without probable cause, just because we want to search it. Absolutely outrageous. Thank you for tuning in. This is Ryan Samuels. Do not forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ryan Samuels Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.